Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Trigno, and this is page 8 of the Algebra 1B Semester 2 exam review. This video will cover questions 33 through 35. Okay, question 33 is a basic trig problem, but I think because it's so basic it tends to be a little bit confusing. Let me get that triangle in there. There we go. Okay, and it tells me that this is a right triangle. There's my right angle right at E. And I want to find the length of side DE, so this is my x here. If I have this angle, that x is across from it, so that is my opposite side. And then this 10 is across from the 90, so that makes this my hypotenuse. So if I'm using O and H from SOHCAHTOA, I'm going to be using sine. So I would say sine of 65. Now remember, this is not law of sines. This is just regular sine from regular trigonometry. So sine of an angle is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So I would say x over 10. Okay. From my calculator, sine of 65, and remember you want to go to 4 decimal places, gives me 0.9063. Equals x over 10. Then I would put that over 1 and cross multiply. So 0.9063 times 10 is going to give me 9.06, which I would round to 9.1 for x. And looking at these side lengths here, if that's 10, I would say that makes sense for that side to be 9.1. Okay, so don't let the regular trig problems confuse you now that you've done all the complicated trig. Okay, question 34 is a two-part question, but I can do them both with a single diagram. So I'm going to draw one diagram and use it for both parts. I've got a 3.5 foot tall boy. Let's move this over here. So, well, my 3.5 foot tall boy has a very long neck. 3.5 feet. Okay. He gets his kite stuck up at the top of a tree. So here's the tree. Okay, here's his kite. And he's got a string coming down like this. Okay? He's standing 25 feet from the base of the tree. So that means this distance here is 25 feet. And he can see his kite at an angle of 38 degrees. So that's like the angle that he's turning his head at. And I know I drew that line down to his hand and not to his eyes, but just picture that as the 38-degree angle. Okay, the first thing I want to know is how tall is the tree? So I'm going to put my x over here. And if this is my angle, that x is my opposite side, and the 25 is adjacent. So opposite and adjacent means that I'm going to be using tangent. So I would say tangent of 38 is equal to opposite, which was x, over adjacent, which is 25. And then from my calculator, tangent of 38 is 0.7813. And that equals x over 25. Let's put that over 1 and cross multiply. So 0.7813 times 25 leaves me with 19.5. Now what I have to be careful of here, and again I know I drew my diagram to be a little bit misleading, is that x really only covers from the kite down to his line of sight. Okay, I've got this chunk of tree down here that I still need to consider. And that is going to be the same height as the boy. So I'm going to add another 3.5 feet to my 19.5. And that's going to come out to be 23 feet exactly. So I would say that this tree is 23 feet long. Okay, question B wants to know how long is the string that leads to his hand? Well, that would be this side here, so I'm going to call this Y. And now here, you could use Pythagorean theorem if you wanted to. The only reason I would maybe not do that is it would involve using this x. So if you had made a mistake when you calculated that x, you're going to make a mistake in that letter b as well. So I would try to do it without using that x, but you could use Pythagorean theorem and use the x and do it that way. I'm going to do it using trigonometry. I'm going to take my 38 degrees again and my 25 feet here, which was given to me in the problem. So now that's my adjacent side. And now I'm looking for the hypotenuse across from the 90. So if I'm using adjacent and hypotenuse, that'll be cosine. So I would say cosine this time of 38 is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So that would be 25 over y. From my calculator, cosine of 38 is 0.7880 is equal to 25 over y. Put that over 1 so I can cross multiply. And then when I cross multiply here, I'm going to end up with 0.7880 y is equal to 25. So I multiplied this and this. Okay, let's divide both sides by that decimal. So I end up with 25 divided by 0.7880. And I get 31.7. So the kite string is 31 feet long. Okay. And that's it for question 34. Okay, question 35. Two trains depart from a common station. So here's my common station. It says the tracks they are traveling on form a 130-degree angle. So one train's going this way, one train's going this way, and I know the angle between them is 130 degrees. Now, remember these lines need to represent the distance that the train is actually traveling. And this tells me that one train is going at 72 miles an hour. That's not actually a distance, though. That's a speed. They're going to travel for 6 hours. So if I'm going 72 miles an hour for 6 hours, I'm going to take 72 times 6, and this one is 432 miles. Then this one's going 84 miles an hour for 6 hours. So this one is 504 miles total. And I want to know, at the end of these 6 hours, what is this distance between the trains? So I want to find this. Okay, once again, this is not a right triangle, so I am stuck using either law of sines or law of cosines. I would love to use law of sines. Pardon me. I would love to use law of sines. The problem here is that while I have a pair here, the 130 and the x, I don't have angles to go with either one of these sides. So I'm not going to be able to use law of sines. I'm going to be using law of cosines. Again, my formula for law of cosines looks like this. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of a. And we want to label whatever we're looking for as a. So this x here, I'm really going to call that side A, which makes this 130 degrees angle A. And then the 432 and the 504 become your BOC, B and C. And it doesn't matter which is which. So I would say a squared equals 432 squared. Well, I'm probably going to have to use 2 lines for this. Plus 504 squared minus 2 times 432 times 504 times cosine of 130. Hopefully you could follow all of that. So here's b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times cosine of a. Okay? Again, because the a is over here by itself on the one side of the equation, I can just type this whole thing into my calculator. So give me just a second while I do that. Whew, I end up with a big number. That's to be expected. So I get a squared equals 720,545.7. So I'm just going to go 546. Now remember that equals a squared. So I still have to take a square root of that. That's why that number came out so huge. I'm going to take a square root of that answer. And I end up with about 848 miles. Your rounding might be a little different depending on where you rounded in the last part. But my final answer, 848 miles. And that does seem big compared to these numbers, but with this wide angle like that, that makes some sense. So 848 miles for your final answer there. Okay, that's it for this video. We've got one page left to go.